Good afternoon, Emanuel Bergmann. Thank you for having accepted this interview with the lecturer ama.fr. We are pleased to meet you and ask you a few questions regarding your last book, Max and Moïse Goldenich, published by Edition BELFOND. My first question, how did you get the idea to write this story? Is it a fiction?
L'idée pour ce roman, j'écrivais ce roman il y a 10 ans, et dans septembre j'ai fait une rupture. I was going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were separating. I'm happy to say that now we are good friends, we get along very well. But at the time it was a painful separation. Et ma femme, elle était l'assistant pour un magicien. Mm-hmm. Pour cette raison, je connais bien le monde du magique. Mon roman, c'est une histoire de rédemption par l'illusion. And I've always thought that that the world of magic, of stage magic, was not very well represented in literature and in cinema. I knew the world of magic because of my wife, because she was a magician's assistant. I was able to meet many magicians and see what they were really like. And I felt that in literature and cinema they were often portrayed as very serious, charming, handsome, dark men. But the magicians I've met, I found them to be needy, neurotic, self-centered, very unpleasant. I say this with love, but very unpleasant individuals, like actors, but worse. And so I thought I wanted to represent the world of magic as I knew it, and I wanted to represent the magicians as I knew it. I wanted to have a very selfish character as a central character. And that brought to mind a fairy tale that I heard when I was growing up in Germany. The fairy tale goes like this. There's a very rich man, a very evil man. He dies, and because he was such a bad man, his soul is supposed to go to hell. But the angels hate seeing any soul going to hell. They go up to God and they say, isn't there something we can do for him? Can't we send him to heaven? And God says, if you find one good deed that he has done, he will be redeemed through this one deed. And the angels know that one time he gave an onion to a woman, a beggar woman, by the side of the road. She was starving to death and he gave her an onion, she ate it, and she was able to survive. This is the one good thing he's done in his life, really by accident. And they find this onion and they fly down to hell and they pull him out of hell with this onion. And so he's granted redemption. And this idea of redemption was the core idea for me in a time of divorce and pain and heartbreak.
And what did your wife think about your book?
She hasn't read it yet because it is not yet published in English. It is going to come out at the end of September, and then I will send her a copy. But a few months ago I invited her for coffee, and I told her I wrote this book. And you asked before, is it autobiographical or is it fiction? It's fiction. The feelings are true, the feelings are autobiographical, but the vehicle, the events, the characters are all invented, are all fictionalized. So I told my ex-wife and saying, you're going to recognize details and moments and emotions, but don't be upset, it's all invented.
Okay. Well, nevertheless, it's written as a real life event. Yeah, so do you think it was easy to deny his identity at that time as Moïse did, even if he was captured and tortured by the
Max
Nazis.
is a little boy, he's trying to prevent his parents' divorce. Moshe is an old stage magician who he meets. He hopes that this magician has a love magic that can save his family. In flashbacks, I tell the story of Moshe Goldenhirsch, who is a stage magician in 1930s Germany. He denies his Judaism, he negates his heritage in order to become a fortune teller and stage magician in Nazi Berlin and Nazi Germany. His denying of his identity was not actually based on the historical reality. I don't really know if it would have worked as easy in real life as it does in my novel. This was inspired by my own life, growing up Jewish in Germany. I'm always in the closet.
Yeah.
I'm always in the closet in Germany. I don't tell people I'm Jewish, it's uncomfortable. I prefer...
Until what age?
Still today.
No, still
when
today.
I'm in Germany, I don't tell people I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
I avoid it.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed a little bit of this.
Yeah.
But it's also what you say. C'est bonjour, je m'appelle Emanuel, et si je suis juif.
Yeah.
C'est, yeah.
Well, but now Germany has changed.
They say that it has changed.
Yeah.
I don't believe it has changed.
Yeah.
Not very much. I am not talking necessarily about anti-Semitism. But the moment, and there is real anti-Semitism in Germany, and it is a real part of our culture, I think, even today. Right now it is not polite to talk about it, and Germany does not want to be seen as an anti-Semitic country or a racist country, but I think that these ressentiments, I think they're still there, under the surface, and I have seen in the United States how quickly this sort of feeling can resurface. Yeah, during the Obama years, I had really thought that America, the United States, was moving towards greater equality and greater justice, social justice. And now I see that I was probably mistaken, and that the old ressentiments have always been there, dormant like a virus, like a flea under the surface. And so I am perhaps less optimistic than others about the new generation of Germans. It is true that in Germany I feel we are dealing very healthy and intelligently with our past, and this is making a difference. And we have a generation of educated, enlightened people, but how deep this enlightenment lasts, I cannot possibly say. I'm not particularly optimistic in general, as I said, based on my recent experiences in the United States. But above and beyond that, leaving aside issues of potential anti-Semitism, I have encountered anti-Semitism in Germany, and not infrequently, quite a few times. But it's also false to say that this would be a constant problem in my life. Of course not. But what is a constant problem is that when I tell people that I'm Jewish, the situation becomes awkward.
Oh, yeah?
It becomes embarrassing. Because then people say, how interesting. Suddenly, after they learn in school that the Germans are guilty and the Holocaust, the Shoah, the World War II, and then they suddenly, for the first time in their lives, they meet a real Jew. They don't know how to act.
Yeah.
They don't know how to react. It's an embarrassing, uncomfortable situation.
Well, they're not natural.
It's not a natural situation. So I always feel like an outsider in Germany. And you would not want this either, right? When you interact with people, they find out something about you, and suddenly there is an awkward, uncomfortable moment, and suddenly you're seen in a different light. Yeah. Suddenly you're identified, not through your character or your actions, but through your background.
You could decide to say, I don't care. I'm what I am, and it's not my problem, it's your problem.
Mais ce n'est pas facile pour moi.
D'accord. Okay. We feel through this book that Moshe is very sensitive. Eventually, we feel that he is very unhappy and lonely. In a way, his story is very sad, but your style showed us a bit of happiness and nostalgia. What are your thoughts of these mixed emotions?
So, when I presented the book in Germany, for example, a few readers were surprised and wondered and says this is a very serious topic. You talk about Shoah, you talk about divorce, alienation, loneliness, you talk about immigration, and yet there's so much humor in your book. For Germans this is very difficult to understand.
Oh yeah.
But I'm always surprised by the opposite. I am constantly surprised why there is not more humor and warmth and light in serious literature or in literature in general. Obviously, to me, something is funny because it's tragic.
Yeah.
Okay, if it were not tragic, we wouldn't laugh. It would not be funny.
You're part of the people who think that we can find some humor in the serious things.
Well, I think we do. I think it is a natural human instinct. A few years ago, I was walking my dog, and my dog is walking ahead of me on the sidewalk, and suddenly she sees another dog on the side of the street. And she's very interested in this other dog, and she keeps looking to the other side, and she keeps walking, and suddenly she walks into a tree. It's very funny.
Yes, of course.
She was embarrassed, maybe it even hurt a little bit, but to us, tragedy is very, very funny. That is our instinct to laugh. And you know, my family who come from the generation that went through Shoah, their humor kept them alive.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so I feel like humor is an essential, it is not just an essential element in this story, it is the spice of life. And without humor, it's not worth living without humor. Unless you're German, then you're okay.
Your character is marked by his own tragedy, losses of Julia and Russell, and his own scars, which are hidden behind his rudeness. The sign of sensitive people is the description of this character you wanted to project.
Yeah, this is the character that I wanted to project. Dans ce roman, il y a deux personnages, Max et Moshe, mais vraiment il y a trois personnages. Parce que le personnage de Moshe Goldenhirsch, il est deux personnes, il est deux caractères, deux visages. We meet Moshe Goldenhirsch as an old man, an old bitter man, and then we meet him again as a young man full of idealism and dreams and hopes. And these are completely different characters. And I think the most interesting thing you can do with a character is contradiction. Yeah? We are fascinated by people and characters who have contradictions. And I felt there could be no greater contradiction between an old, disillusioned man and a young man who still has dreams and beliefs. How does one grow up to be the other? For this reason, Moshe Goldenhirsch is the only character in this book who is in both stories. There are two stories being told. The story of Max and his parents and their divorce in modern-day Los Angeles, and the story of Moshe Goldenhirsch in old Europe as he deals with the rise of Nazi Germany as a young magician. Moshe is in both these stories. As an old man, he's in present day. As a young man, we see him in the 30s and 40s. And I wrote him as completely separate people. And I wanted to see what choices does a man make to go from one spot to the other spot.
This story could not be fiction because during the war there were so many strange and extraordinary stories which happened. What do you think? Did you hear such kind kind of similar events?
So
I asked you this question
No,
because my parents read a lot of books about extraordinary things happened during the war, and I thought about that.
So I have two answers really. One answer is a very intelligent and sophisticated literary critic once asked me and said, "Is this permissible to write a story of such a miraculous rescue at the end? Or is this not lessening or cheapening the lessons of the Shoah?" And my response and my reason, one of the reasons for writing the book, is that every human life that is saved is a miracle.
Yeah.
And every human life, every story behind every person saved is extraordinary. When you hear the story, it's always extraordinary.
Yeah.
And in my own family, I'm Jewish, I must confess, only on my father's side, so to the Jews I don't come. Je ne suis pas vraiment juif,
Yeah.
mais avec l'allemand, dans l'Allemagne, je suis toujours juif.
Yeah.
So for the Jews I'm not Jewish enough, for the Germans I will always be a Jew. And my father's side is Jewish. My grandmother was interned, in fact, here in France, in a camp, Gurs, in the south of France. And they were going to be evacuated or taken to the extermination camps in Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
My grandfather on my mother's side, the other side of the family, was not Jewish, but he was a communist, and he became a partisan underground fighter against the Nazis, also in France, in the south of France. And he would steal, he worked officially for the Gestapo, because he was fluent in German, but he always stole money and plans and guns and channeled it to his comrades in the resistance. And they would use explosives to blow up train tracks and things like this. And I know this hasn't happened, but I always thought, what would it be like if my grandfather's resistance cell had blown up the train tracks that had transported my grandmother east? So I've always played in my mind with this idea of these paths intersecting.
Yeah.
In the end, my grandmother survived by her own intelligence and her own wits, and so did my grandfather. But this idea of one person's action influencing another person and it having an effect 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the future has always fascinated me.
Destiny.
Destiny. It's not something I believe in as a concept, but that's what fiction is for.
Yeah. Reading the book, I imagine seeing this story on a screen. Did you think about creating a script for a possible film?
Well, there have so far been producers who were interested.
Yeah.
Nothing definite has happened, but we are in discussions, I would say. And I feel that the novel, I think it works okay as a novel with the two different timelines, but I think in a movie this would be incredibly annoying.
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? I think it would be very irritating if you always jump back and forth.
Yeah, no, because of the double mind of Moïse, his rudeness, his sensitiveness, and little boy Max, and you can do a lot of things with that. Yeah, I imagine completely the storyboard of your book. So, and I think, well, it is ready for a script.
Well, I am, like I said, I'm hesitant that it would be so easy to do with the two plot lines, and so I thought of seeing what happens with the production companies that we've been discussing. Because before I work on a script, I would like to get creative. Film is a collaborative art. Now I've written the book as I wanted to write it. For the script, I would be very happy to meet someone, a creative partner, a director, another screenwriter, to say, okay, how do we solve the creative problems of this? How do we transfer it into a script? I'd be very happy to do this, but I haven't done it by myself yet, also because I've written this book 3 times by now, in English, in German, and then in English again. I need to write something else for a moment.
Do you have any more project?
Yes, I am working on another book that my publisher is eagerly waiting for, and I would love to tell you what it is, but I can't.
Yeah.
A few months ago I had a book tour in Germany, and after a reading, an old lady came to me and says, so you said you're working on something else, would you mind telling me what it is? And I said, oh, she's such a nice old lady, I will tell her. So I told her this idea, and she looks at me and goes, I don't like it. So then now I just shut up.
Okay. Well, I'm not there to judge you.
No, but just the moment you say something,
your projects.
then you know, like I said, she was a nice old lady, but she's like, nah, I don't like this idea. So
okay.
Maybe she's right. It might be terrible.
Okay. Thank you, Emanuel,
Merci,
for
merci à vous.
that. Okay. Thanks a lot.